On this week's show, the Georgia Southern football team reeling from their recent loss to App State on Thursday night. This week, the Eagles look to bounce back against an SEC foe on the road as they travel to Oxford to take on the Ole Miss Rebels. We'll preview that and have much more as we welcome you inside the Eagles Nest. And welcome inside the Eagles Nest. I'm your host, Josh Aubrey, being joined by Mike Anthony, sports editor and Georgia Southern beat writer for the Statesboro Herald. And Mike, the Georgia Southern Eagles coming off one of their most disappointing losses and one of the worst offensive outputs we've seen in quite some time. Unfortunately, it comes on national TV against your arch rival, Appalachian State. The Eagles fall at home and score only 10 points, and one of those came on a botched field goal that they scooped and scored on, and the field goal came on a short field that the defense put them in great position for. They did end up with a little bit of yardage that all came kind of when App State was in prevent, had second string in, and they moved down the field and still couldn't score there in the fourth. Your thoughts as we look back on the App State game once again?
Well, we thought that it could be going in a defensive battle, and for most of the game, that's what it was. App State definitely holding up its end of the bargain, as you mentioned. Most of Georgia Southern's points coming on a bad special teams play for App State, but their defense, true to form, they're one of the highest rated in the league. They showed why the Georgia Southern offense could just never get anything going. And as ineffective as they were putting points on the board, it was their inability to move the chains at all and get the defense some time to rest. I think that's what really did them in. The Georgia Southern defense, for most of the night, played a solid game. They took some of the plays that App State ran well against them up in Boone last year. They mitigated the effects of that, some of the same things that Arkansas State did. Those outside zone runs, App does them as well as anybody. Georgia Southern able to keep that from hurting them too much, and this is a 10-10 game midway through the third quarter, but you just started to see every time that Georgia Southern offense went on the field, 3 plays later, they're trotting back off the field and the punt team's coming in. It was only a matter of time before the Georgia Southern defense ran out of gas. That's exactly what we saw. App State running 70-some-odd plays, most of them in the second half. Huge time of possession difference in the second half. And in the end, they start to break some of those tackles, get the big plays, and pull away.
A lot of people saw this coming a little earlier than this as far as the Georgia Southern offense struggling. You put up 55 points against Savannah State, but never really had a big play. Then you knew the competition was only going to get better, and the offense tended to get a little bit worse. Still wasn't explosive, still waited to see. Everybody, I think, was cautiously optimistic that maybe they might turn the corner here, there. You know, they had a moment here, a quarter here, a play or two here that made you think, okay, well, maybe they could put it all together. And this was kind of the culmination of the worst case scenario for Georgia Southern fans. And I guess for that matter, the players and the coaches as well. The biggest move, I guess, of the season so far, or at least as far as we know, has been announced as Coach Summers has said that Rance Gillespie will no longer be calling plays. Coach Dean will now take that over, and I guess that's at least a move. I don't know if it's the move that solves everything.
Well, it's hard to tell what exactly is going to come of this. The playbook, you can't imagine is going to change. It's just a difference of, or a matter of, what different plays are being called, how they approach everything. Coach Dean, he's run an effective offense before as a head coach at Valdosta State. I know that Georgia Southern fans hear that. They think throwing the ball all over the field, and this coaching staff, I don't know what to take them on other than they've continued to say that they want to run the ball, but now realizing or admitting that wanting to run the ball isn't quite the same as actually running the ball. Georgia Southern, for all the offensive talent they have, the running talent that they have, just unable to get any of those guys into space. As we've talked about throughout the season, it doesn't matter how fast you are. If there's 2 guys on you, as soon as you take the handoff, nothing's going to happen. So who knows, maybe they pass a little bit more. It certainly seems like this coaching staff is comfortable putting a true freshman and Seth Schumann into the game. Maybe he throws a little bit more, but right now, not quite sure what to expect. And going up against one of their toughest tests of the season and on the road again, certainly a tough situation for the Eagles to be in, especially now that they're making some changes with the play calling.
Well, we've seen a lot of the heat come down on the offensive coordinators, but one of the areas that seems to be the most glaring weakness right now on the team has been the offensive line and Coach Mogridge. up front with them. And I don't know at what point maybe you change your philosophy totally on an offensive line, whatever they've been doing. Maybe you try to do something different, because whatever they're doing seems to be what begins everything else, whether it's not opening up a hole, whether it's not preventing the defense from rushing the quarterback, whatever it might be. It seems like those guys are either lost or struggling, and maybe you have to do something up front to get everything else flowing.
And again, a dilemma there, because what we have seen is a vast improvement as far as pass blocking goes. Last year, granted, the quarterbacks weren't doing a great job of finding receivers, but a lot of times it had to do with the fact that they knew somebody was coming 2 seconds after the snap. This season, a lot more time for whoever's back there under center to operate. The passing game has seen an uptick in production because of that. However, the running game, I don't know what you change. You don't want to just sub guys out, because they've proven that they can be effective at least in half the game. They need to find a way to move forward instead of falling back and creating a pocket. Move forward, get to the edge, and once again give those guys some room to operate.
And getting better blocking on the perimeters, I know that's also been a concern of the coaching staff, and that is getting the receivers who may be more excited that they're catching balls, but they've still got to hold their blocks, whether it's blocking for another receiver to get open or blocking the perimeter to get a run and being able to break a big run as well.
Yeah, and they've definitely come through as far as catching the ball. Some receivers really making a name for themselves. Miles Campbell, one guy coming to mind. You've seen how fast he is if you've ever been out at practice. It was just a matter of time before they found a way to get him the ball, and he's made the coaching staff look good when he catches it. Some drops affecting him the last couple of games, but that's a problem that the Eagles face right now, is trying to keep everybody happy. We've talked about it before. Maybe not enough footballs to go around. So at this point in the season, though, I think everybody needs to take a step back, stop worrying about individual production. Not that guys are worried about individual production, but I think that looking at the tape, they can see that there's bigger problems than just one guy not doing this right or one guy not doing that right. As a whole, the offense really struggling right now. So just a lot of introspection, I think, is called for to find out what's broken, how to fix it here in the next couple of games.
So when your offense is struggling and they're putting the defense back on the field and the defense gets tired and they have to try to prevent a team from scoring, what's just what the doctor ordered is an SEC team who tends to put up a lot of points, is coming off a few losses in a row, desperate to try to get back on track and try to get themselves bowl eligible. Down in Oxford, Mississippi, the Ole Miss Rebels coming up here Saturday at high noon.
They've got their work cut out for them, especially with the offense. The SEC defense, one of the better SEC defenses at Ole Miss, not quite as good this year, but you've certainly seen the recruiting battles that they've had. They've been a top-ranked team in the country the last few years. A lot of that having to do with the defensive guys they've brought in. So if Georgia Southern's going to get healthy this week, it might come as a shock. But you know what? That's why they play the game. There have been upsets before. There have been upsets by Georgia Southern against SEC teams before. So I guess cross your fingers. I don't know what to expect, but anything can happen.
All right, well, let's get out there and hear from Coach Summers and some of the players about the matchup this week.
We've been fairly detailed and talked about, trying to make corrections and things like that. And, one of the adjustments that we'll make, for this week is Coach Dean, our receivers coach, will become the play caller this week for us moving forward. And Coach Gillespie will, solely focus on the quarterbacks. There's, a couple reasons behind that. One of which, again, trying to give Coach Gillespie an opportunity, obviously, to focus in on a position that's had a lot of injuries and got a true freshman sitting there playing, and trying to move forward and give ourselves a little bit different perspective as we move forward. Again, there's not anything, from a title standpoint or anything like that. We just need to be able to have a fresh perspective on a couple things and be able to continue to move forward. We go into Ole Miss. Again, obviously, a really talented football team, has had one of the toughest schedules of probably anybody in the country this year. And, when you sit there and you start and you talk about Coach Freeze and the job he's done there, and Dave Womack and what he's been able to do over his career as a defensive coordinator, both guys extremely impressive. The quarterback, in my opinion, is as good as anybody in the country. The three receivers and the tight end combination are probably better than anybody in the country. And I think their two tackles on offense are good players, and they've had a couple of injuries, at at the running back position, but I think they're explosive, fast-paced, and they'll really create a challenge for us defensively as we go into it. Again, you know, them on defense, I think that they're too deep, but their defensive tackles are really impressive how they play with their hands. Tough guys, hard to move. Defensive ends are athletic, skillful, can rush a quarterback. Linebackers are solid guys, a little bit like us. A lot of youth in the secondary, a lot of very inexperienced. Got one corner, number one, that's played a lot of snaps for them and is a good player. And we've got to be able to try to find ways to be able to get some runs in that piece.
I mean, it's going to be tough, but I mean, we treat it like any other week. You know, it's nothing different just because, you know, they're the SEC. You know, we're going to go out there, we're going to stick to our game plan. We have a great week of preparation, and we just got to be ready to play on Saturday.
What do you see when you look at them on their defense against your offense?
They're good. They're a great defense, you know, fast, physical, but, you know, also we're a good offense, and I feel like once we get the pieces and everything clicking, you know, we're going to be fine.
What kind of mindset you have going into Ole Miss?
We're just going to go out there and do what we do. You know, it's just another opportunity to play football against another good SEC team. You know, we always play good against those big schools, and we're just very excited to be able to go up there to Ole Miss and play them. You know, we're going to bounce back. You know, we're going to do what we have to do to put points up on the board, and, you know, just continue to play hard. You know, that's what we've been getting away from, not playing as physical as we can, but, you know, that's our plan, is to play more physical.
Ole Miss will be playing a great group of guys this week. They have a very explosive offense. Chad Kelly, who's a really good quarterback, one of the best in the country. He can throw it, he can run it. And no matter what, at the end of the day, we know that we got to go out there and compete. We got to go out there and dominate, and we got to go out there and look to get the win.
Okay, you're not a magician, but I have a way you can make that old vehicle in your garage or driveway disappear and be replaced by a beautiful new one. Visit Franklin Chevrolet in Statesboro. It's Truck Month, and right now you can save up to $10,000 on select Silverados. And our model year-end pricing on all remaining 2016s will make your savings seem magical. No tricks. Just our team working hard as we can to get you the vehicle and price you want. Franklin Chevrolet. Come in or see us at franklinchevrolet.com.
All right, Mike, this is the time of the show where you give us we both give our predictions of the game. Your thoughts on how this game's going to play out for Georgia Southern and Ole Miss?
Well, Georgia Southern, a big underdog. Last I saw, bordering on a 4-touchdown underdog, and with good reason. Ole Miss, a very talented team. Maybe their record doesn't show it, but they are talented. They're very annoyed with how their season's going. I think that they see this as a chance to get healthy, to get back, maybe put a big number up on the board. I don't think they're overlooking Georgia Southern so much as they're targeting them after a tough schedule of their own. And Georgia Southern with plenty of problems trying to move the ball, trying to score some points. I think maybe some of the new wrinkles, some of the new play calls get something done in terms of putting points on the board, but I just don't think that they've got enough to go up against this Ole Miss team on the road again for the 5th time in 6 weeks. I think Ole Miss pulls away early. I think Georgia Southern's defense, maybe due to not having to be on the field as much with some more improved offense and first downs and all that, they don't get quite as tired. They put up a valiant effort, but I see a score very similar to last week. I'm going to go with the same score, 34-10.
Wow, that's being pretty generous. I think the Ole Miss offense is going to score a little bit more than that. I'm looking at 45-17. How about that? All right, well, that's it for the Georgia Southern football aspect, but there are some other sports going on in the fall. Mike, let's get an update on how some other sports are doing right now.
Well, women's soccer done for the year, a tough year there for the Eagles. Men's soccer, though, still in the mix. An upset loss on the road at Howard in Washington, D.C., one of the weaker teams in the conference, and you thought that the Eagles had a free run pretty much to a 1 seed or a tie for the 1 seed after a couple of surprising results, a tie against Coastal Carolina, a win against Hartwick, but that loss to Howard sets them back. Now looking at a lower seed, a 2, maybe a 3. They can go a long way towards helping themselves, building up some momentum in their season finale. That'll be Saturday at home, 7 o'clock against App State. Hopefully they can get a win there, get back up some momentum going into the conference tournament in Atlanta, hosted by Georgia State next week. And then volleyball, some tough times for volleyball as well. They're now 4-6 in conference play after a pretty good start. They now face a doubleheader of sorts. Coastal Carolina, a scheduled game on the road, but before that they've got to make up one of the 2 matches. It was postponed by Hurricane Matthew coming through, so a chance for the volleyball Eagles to get a good look at the newest member of the Sun Belt, and hopefully they can get back on track.
All right, and basketball actually starting as well. The women had an exhibition that they won pretty handedly. They open the regular season next Friday. The guys will have an exhibition coming up next week as well. Well, that'll wrap things up. For Mike Anthony, I'm Josh Aubrey. Thanks for joining us. Hope to see you again next week.